Kai Cenat is in a huge drama that might cost him his career. Imagine setting up a live stream waiting for someone to join to set up an event just to end up getting ignored like a YouTube ad. Well, that's what happened to the streamer called Jinxie.
The reel you just watched was made in After Effects, and in the next 1 hour, you'll know exactly how to remake it. I will go over camera movement, how to use null objects for extra smoothness, and text and character animations. All the assets can be found in the comments. Let's start. Add a solid layer. Make it white. And you can see I renamed it to white background. Add your YouTube profile screenshot. Make sure the size is appropriate. And then what we're going to do is duplicate it and start masking out every section individually. So the first duplicate is going to be for the name and the profile picture. Name it that in order not to get confused. Okay, and then I want you to go back to the original layer and duplicate that one in order to mask out the rest of the sections. So this one is called buttons. Go to the original layer again, duplicate it again, and mask out the first video and name it video 1 or first video, and do the same for the other videos. Okay, now after I masked out everything, I want you to select everything, press S to bring out scale, add a keyframe at the first frame, go a couple frames and add another one. And now I want you to go to the first frame and make sure it's at 0. So everything is popping out. Now go to the graph editor, make sure everything is visible. And after you select everything and press F9, I want you to go to this last part right here and bring it towards the right. So the graph should look something like this. Now go to the comments and copy the bounce expression that I have left for you. And I want you to press Alt and click on these stopwatches right here and copy the bounce expression for every layer. And now if we look at our animation, it's going to look something like this. Good. Now what I want to do is select everything, bring up scale again, and try to offset these layers or these keyframes by like 2 keyframes each. Now, if you want to kind of increase the gap between everything, you can see what I did here. I selected everything, pressed Alt, and dragged everything outwards, and then selected just the last keyframes and dragged them to their original place. This results in like a higher gap between them. So this is the effect that we're left with. Now it's time to add our thumbnails effect. So we're just going to add our assets right here. We're just going to add our audio to kind of see what we're syncing our animation to. Control Shift D after we select everything. It's going to bring out something like this and just delete the part that you don't want. Now what I'm going to do is offset these pictures in a way like this so that everything or every one of them comes up individually after the other. Okay, so now we're going to add a null object. Make sure everything is in 3D. And then select our video layers, parent them to the layer so we can control them from the layer. Now what I want to do is adjust the positions of these videos or these screenshots individually so that they are on top of each other exactly. Just press each layer separately, P to bring out position, and kind of make sure it's stacked on top of the layer below it. That's it. I'm just going to go to our null layer that controls everything and add a keyframe for position. And then go a couple frames and add another keyframe, but this time kind of push everything towards the back. So that it's kind of going towards the back. I want our animation to look something like this. The graph is just going to be this.
Is in a huge drama.
And now you can see that I decided to pre-compose everything because I want to add another effect. So just pre-compose everything. go to effects and search up warp effect. Add it to the pre-comp, and we're gonna set the warp style to fish eye, and we're gonna play around with the bend. So we want it to kind of be bubbly at first, and then for it to kind of push inwards at the end of the animation. So we're just gonna need 2 keyframes to do that. So the first keyframe is gonna be at this value, and then for the second keyframe, just go a couple frames forward, or you can sync it with the zoom out animation. Make the value something like this. Of course, sync the graph to the first one, to that of the zoom in or the zoom out animation. So make it like this. Now I want to add our text. So just add a text, make it, stylize it however you want. You can copy me, but do it however you want. And then make both layers 3D, add some drop shadow if you want to make it white to kind of separate it from the image below it. And then make sure the text is set behind our pre-comp in terms of the Z position or the 3D space, so that our thumbnails appear above it, okay? So you can see I sped up everything here because I do a bunch of like choosing and hesitating. I don't want you guys to kind of rush through that. Just select whatever style you want, or you can just copy me. But the key things to take away from this is just to add drop shadow and place your text behind the thumbnails.
Tanan is in a huge drama.
And now we're gonna sync our animation to the audio by making the text appear at the time it is set. So what I'm gonna do is just go to effects and presets and add this preset right here. Fade up words. Press U to bring up the keyframes and adjust them to the audio clip. This preset is available in the default version of After Effects. No plugins needed, no presets needed. Make sure you add it to the second text, his career too, and then press U again to bring up the keyframes and sync it to the audio clip again. Now for the second text, I want to kind of add a position animation. So what I'm going to do is just add a keyframe and then make it kind of go up. So the first keyframe is going to be down, and the second keyframe is going to be the text just in its original position. And make the graph something like this. Okay, now let's add a solid layer, make it black, and this one is to separate the background from the text and the thumbnails. So just follow what I'm gonna do. Now, we want to kind of trim it right here and delete the part that we don't want. So just Control-Shift-D and delete the part that we don't want. And then we're gonna kind of keyframe it just appearing by just through the opacity parameter. And then in the second keyframe, make it something around 30. Make sure you don't make it 100 or anything like that to not completely cover the layers below. Now we're just going to add a camera, add a null object, turn it into 3D, and connect the camera to it. Now we're going to add a position right here, go a couple keyframes, and we want to kind of zoom in on the text. As you can see, the text is too big for the zoom in animation to work. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just leave the zoom in, but add another null object for our text layers to kind of control both of them. So just rename it text control. And select both our texts and parent them to the layer. Now we're gonna bring up its Z position and push it backwards. Make sure you kind of play with the Y position as well. And now we have something like this. Great. Our camera movement is kind of linear. So we're just going to make the graph kind of fast at the point where the text appears. So that, of course, varies depending on your project. But for me, it's around this part right here. Just kind of bring your cursor to see where the text appears, and then at that point exactly is where you want the spike of the graph to be, okay? Now we're just gonna refer back to our audio to see where the next thing is set, right? So where the next part is gonna start. So about right here, we're just gonna select everything, Control-Shift-D, and take out the parts we don't want. We're gonna add another null object for the transition, call it transition, and connect the null that we used for camera to it. Bring up position, add a keyframe at the last keyframe, and then go back a couple frames. Add another keyframe. Go to the last keyframe. You can bring it forward or backwards a bit to see what's going on, and just make your text go whatever direction you want. You can even perform a zoom in or out. For me, I chose to kind of make it go to the left. Select both the keyframes and make a graph like this one. So slow at the start and fast at the end. We're gonna add a drop shadow to our pre-comp, so that's our thumbnails, to kind of separate it from the background. I like this effect, I use it a lot. It's optional, of course, but you can do it. Looks something like this now. Okay, so now we're just gonna add a couple effects to our thumbnails. So I decided to add some noise. Make the amount of noise around 20, and make sure you uncheck use color. You can use it if you want, but I don't. Add glow and copy my settings right here. I also decided to add this wave warp effect. Make sure it's very subtle, so adjust these parameters accordingly, especially the wave width. You want to make sure it's a very high number, because if the waves are very little, then it's going to be like that spiky animation, which we don't want. That's far from subtle. We want it to be subtle so that it doesn't look, funky, in order to achieve that generally professional look. Okay, now I'm just going to start working on our second scene. So I'm just going to right here, imagine. You can't see it because it's white. Turn it into black, and then stylize it however you want. Turn it into 3D layer and make sure it's in the center. After you do that, we're just going to slide in our person on using the computer asset. You can find this in the description or the comments, wherever. We're going to add, of course, make sure the position is appropriate along with the scale. So what I'm going to do is just P and then bring it out about right here. We're going to add or readjust this position later on in the video, but for now we're going to keep it right here. Add a mask, and we're going to take off the screen. So the mask is going to look something like this. What we want to do is invert it, and now the screen is not there. Okay, now we're going to add another mask to apply some feather. So just make the mask subtract instead of add. And then if you kind of decrease or increase the feather, it's going to give off this little effect. Make sure you kind of space the corners so that we don't see any glitches in the corners. Now what I'm going to do is bring a shape layer and kind of click in the void to not mask anything, and make the shape cover the screen like this. Make this shape in the layer section below the laptop, rename it to screen mat, and copy the position of the laptop to the screen mat. Now it's going to look something like this. So what I'm going to do is just scale it down. I want to keep the same position, so I'm just going to scale it down and then just play around with the X and Y positions, not the Z, because I want to keep the Z right there so that it's tied to our laptop. Okay, so the reason I called it screen mat is because I'm going to use it as a mask for a picture I have here. So it's a picture of the person streaming. I'm just going to bring it right here, turn it into 3D, and drag this little icon towards the screen mat to track mat it to it. And now what I'm going to do is just adjust its position to be fully apparent. As you can see, I copied the position from the track mat or the streamer on laptop. They're all in the same position, and copied it to our newly introduced picture, which is this. And then just play around with the size, the scale, and the X and Y positions to achieve something like this. Now you can see it's not following the laptop. So what I'm going to do is just take our screen mat layer and parent it to the streamer, and our Jinxie layer and parent it to the screen mat. Now if I move the computer, everything else moves with it. Cool. Now we have our setup ready. Now you can see our layers are kind of overlapping with the previous animation. So I'm just going to take everything, Control-Shift-D, and delete everything that we don't need. Now we're going to go to our laptop and bring out position and animating, kind of sliding in to the frame. So what I'm going to do is just add a keyframe at the first frame, and then go a couple frames, add another frame, go to the first frame, and kind of position it out of the frame towards the right or the left, whatever you want. Make the graph something like this. You can adjust the graph to your liking, but make sure it's slow and kind of coming in. But you can make it fast at the start. It doesn't really matter, it's just preference. Now I'm gonna go to my effects and add Lumetri color to the streamer laptop layer, and I'm gonna bring the saturation down. And then we're gonna add noise. And we're also gonna add glow. Now I'm gonna copy the glow effect and just paste it to the Jinxie screenshot layer, which is this layer of our stream. And what I'm gonna do is just add that flickering effect by playing around with the intensity. So I'm gonna add a keyframe for intensity, and then go a couple frames forward and increase it by a little bit. So for me, I chose the 0.7 value. And now I'm gonna copy these keyframes and paste them a couple more times. So now we have a looping animation. We can select everything again and just bring it towards where we need the animation to be. And now, in order to achieve this little trick right here, you just select everything, press Alt, and kind of drag it towards whatever direction you want. It's gonna scale everything up proportionately. Now you can see I'm adjusting the radius in order to achieve a better effect. Now you can see it's kind of flickering, but I'm not really satisfied with this. So what I'm gonna do is turn the 0.7 value into 0.9 so that it adds more glow.
Setting up a live stream waiting for someone.
This is perfect. Now we're gonna add a null object and add a camera and connect the camera to the null object after we trim the parts we don't need. Call this one transition in. So that means that the start of the clip, there's going to be a transition, or the start of a scene. This transition is going to be complementary to the transition we ended the first scene with. So for the first scene, you can see we ended by making everything go towards the left. Now everything is going to come out from the right. Okay, so let's see how to do that. Just add 2 keyframes, and for the first one, push everything towards the right. Exactly like this. Now for the graph, I want you to make it the exact opposite of the first graph. First graph ended fast. This one is gonna start fast. Boom. Now our position is not really correct. So what I'm gonna do is just go to the second frame, bring it right here, and then readjust the position to make everything go towards the middle. Good.
Setting up a live stream waiting. Imagine setting up a live.
Now I'm gonna bring this layer of the laptop towards the camera a bit more. Make sure you delete the keyframes that are unwanted. So I'm just gonna readjust the Z position and copy its value and go to the first frame that I had already set and copy the Z value too. So now our keyframe or laptop is more towards the camera. Now, the reason I wanted to do this is for our zoom out animation. And now just bring out a null object called zoom out and make 2 keyframes. The second one zooms out and make the graph something like this. Now I'm going to adjust the keyframes of the laptop's position so that it slides in faster. Something like this. Now let's just add a black solid to achieve the same effect we achieved in the first scene. We're going to make sure it's above everything, and we're going to introduce it through opacity. T to bring out opacity and just make 2 keyframes.
Waiting for someone live stream, waiting.
The first one is going to be at 0 and the second one at 30. Ease the keyframes by pressing F9 after selecting them. Now we're just going to add our text. So our text is just going to be white. Turn it into 3D, of course. And we're going to stylize it however you want. But I want it to be something like this. Now I'm going to parent the second text to the first one so that they move accordingly, and just play around with its position until we achieve something that we like. Add some glow to our text. Add some drop shadow now. And now copy both the effects and go to the second text layer and paste them.
Imagine setting up a live
Now
stream.
I want to animate the text coming in, so I'm just going to go to Effects and Presets and type in Fade Up. You can bring in your own preset or just use the already existing ones in After Effects. Or if you have personal effects that you use or presets for text, you can use them also. So just drag the presets on the text, press U to bring out the keyframes and adjust them according to the audio. Make sure you do the same for the second text. Now what I'm going to do is just go to our zoom out animation and extend it a bit by extending the gap between the 2 keyframes. And now our animation looks something like this.
Waiting for someone to join to set up
Now I'm going to bring my video layer, turn it into 3D, and adjust the position so that it's above the text. Okay, I want to make it slide in. So first let's cut off the parts that we don't need. So just Control D. I kind of made a mistake here. You don't want to press Shift Control D because that creates another layer. And when you delete the first layer, you kind of play around with the names. So as you can see in the layers, there is layers with 2 at the end of the name, and that ruins our parenting system. So if I have something parented to null 1, now it's named null 2 and not 1. So the parenting link is not there. So you don't want to do that. You want to kind of just grab that layer and trim it and not use this technique that I just showed you because it created some problems for me in the future. You're going to see me encounter them, but yeah, just don't do my mistake. Now what I'm doing here, you can just see me add in a keyframe kind of sliding this video in. Just copy my graph and everything.
Up an event just to end up getting ignored like a YouTube ad.
So what I said to you, so this is what I talked about. You can see me kind of relinking the camera to the layer and just kind of testing, trying to figure out what the problem is. Created a whole roller coaster for me. So just don't repeat my mistake and you're gonna be good. As you can see, the zoom in is all like messed up. So I'm gonna have to do all of this again, but it's okay. And now I just went back to my zoom out animation and I'm kind of tweaking it a little bit to appear better. Now what I'm going to do is add the mute sound PNG image, turn it into 3D. We're going to go to effects and presets and add this effect called tint in order to turn it white. And go to the black part right here and just turn it white. Now just go to position and make sure you scale it down and position it at the right spot. So I want it to be at the lower left side of the Jinxie video. What I'm going to do after that, after it's positioned, is just grab this right here and parent it to the Jinxie layer so that they move with each other.
Set up an event just to end up getting ignored like a
now what I did here without realizing is add 2 keyframes, which I don't need for the mute PNG. So what I'm going to do is just delete the one that I don't need, which is the second one. I don't even need the first one because I don't want to animate it. Now let's just add a drop shadow effect and make sure it's completely visible. Now what I want to do is I want this kind of cross that's in our icon to appear after it is clicked. So what I'm going to do is just mask it out for now. So just mask it and then go to add and press subtract.
Getting ignored like a YouTube ad.
You can see I added another keyframe accidentally for no reason. So I'm just going to delete it again. Now grab your cursor image and turn it into 3D and put it right above the mute sound icon. Now what I'm going to do is parent it, wait for it to be exactly in its position. That means above the mute sound, and grab the layer and parent it to the mute sound effect. Now it's kind of moving with it. Okay, good. Now we're just going to add 2 keyframes for position and kind of animate it coming in. So that's by doing exactly this and make the graph like mine.
An event just to end up getting ignored or like a YouTube ad.
Now I want to go to scale and animate the click animation. So we can do that by adding 3 keyframes. The second one is going to be not far from the first one, but the third one is going to be a bit far. We're going to go to the center one and scale down our object and make the graph something like this.
Or like a YouTube ad.
Now, as the click happens, we want our little thing that's inside of the icon to pop up. We're going to do that by animating the mask expansion. So just add a keyframe, and as the mouse clicks, animate the mask expansion to be a value that's extremely negative. And make sure you make the animation last 1 frame so that it suddenly pops up. Now we're going to add another layer and connect zoom out to it. And we're just going to add a transition right now. So let's refer back to our audio form and make sure we trim out the part that we don't need. You can see I always just shift control D method. It's okay right now because we're going to keep the original layers and not delete them. The reason it created a problem for me at first is because I deleted the original ones.
Setting up a live stream waiting for someone to join.
Now what I want to do is create a transition right here. So go to the last keyframe. Of course, make sure you turn the layer into 3D add a keyframe, and then go a couple frames before and add another keyframe. Go to the last one and choose a direction. For me, it was upwards. Make sure the graph is fast at the end. Okay, now I'm going to add a null object and connect this one, the last one, to it, and call it mute button zoom in. So this is something that I forgot to add, but no worries, we're going to add it right now. We just want to kind of zoom in on the mute button. So place the keyframes same way I'm going to do. And for the last keyframe, just zoom in on the mute button, make sure it's the main point of focus, and make the graph something like this. So fast in the middle. Right when the click happens, that's where we want our graph to be the fastest. So it kind of zooms in on our mute button before the transition happens, or as it's happening, because the animations are overlapping. Now we're just going to bring our background and our person PNGs and just place them right here. Control-Shift-D to trim out the parts that we don't want. Of course, you got to turn them into 3D layers. And now what I'm going to do is create a gap between these two. And you can do that by just the Z position. So that's the last value in the position parameters. Just bring the person forward or push the background back, one of the two. Now you can see the person is extending out of the background layer. So what I'm going to do is just track back the person to the background. I'm just going to give off this effect. Now you can see I added some lumetri color in order to play around with the saturation. I just wanted to lower it by quite a bit. Add a bit of noise and make sure you uncheck use color noise. I hate that effect. And then go to glow, and you're going to add glow to the person and not the background. And just copy my settings or make your own settings. This is completely preferential. Now double click on the layer of the person and just press this tool right here and add a bunch of pins. This is going to help us animate our person. So let's go a couple frames forward, about 2 seconds forward, and just animate everything. Just change the position of everything towards the same direction. So I'm kind of imitating an animation of the person kind of getting pushed by the wind or whatever towards the left. So every position or every pin is moving towards that direction. Some pins are moving upwards, some pins are moving to the right, but the majority are moving towards the left. You kind of want to make the animation realistic. And now just copy the keyframes, all of the keyframes, and go a couple frames forward. So we did 2 seconds. We're also going to go 2 seconds forward after we paste them. And we want to paste them multiple times to create a loop animation. Now select everything, press Alt while you're dragging everything inwards to kind of make the animation faster. This trick right here is really helpful. You're going to use it a lot. So we drag the keyframes towards each other to make the animation more compact, and that just made it faster. Now I'm just going to go Control-T and add my text right here. So what I'm going to say is just, that's exactly what happened to the streamer, because that's what the voice or the audio clip says. I'm going to stylize it however I want and position it exactly above the image that we formulated. And place it exactly above the image that we composed. Now, after I do that, I'm just going to click in the void and add a shape layer. I'm going to make it black. Rename it to text background because it's going to act as the background. Turn it into 3D. and then go to the Jinxie no background layer position, copy it and paste it to this one right here. That's because we want the Z position to be similar to that one. As you can see, it's kind of coming in and out. That's because it's very close to the person. Now this is optional, but you can play around with the roundness. You can see I tried to change the color because I didn't like it to be completely black. Now I'm just gonna add the text, Jinxie, stylize it, and then turn it into white. I'm gonna copy the position of the text background and paste it to our text and make it 3D and paste the position again. And then I'm gonna bring it over my shape layer.
Called Jinxie.
Our shape coming in. So we're just gonna click on our shape, click on the little arrow right here. Go to transform, rectangle, and then rectangle, transform rectangle. And we're gonna bring our anchor point to this position right here using this tool called the behind pan or whatever its name is. So just bring the anchor point to this position so that when we scale it down, it scales down from that anchor point. Make sure the scale parameters are detached so that we can adjust just the X scale.
Well, that's what happened to this.
And now we're going to add a keyframe where we're supposed to add it. So that's just before the text appears.
The streamer called Jinxie.
It should be 0. And then the second one should be at 100. And now just make your shape layer or your graph something like this. Now what I want to do is add a bounce animation to my text layer. So what I'm going to do is just copy it and go to the scale parameter that I'm using to animate the shape coming in, and just click on the stopwatch to bring up the text box and copy or paste my expression. Now what I'm going to do is add another camera to control our last scene. Add another node object, turn it into 3D, and name it transition in. So this layer is going to be responsible for the in transition. Connect the camera to it and add a keyframe at the first keyframe of the scene, and then go a couple frames forward, about 2 seconds, add another keyframe, and go back to the first one. And as you can see, our camera is kind of impacting the first scene, so we can't see. So I'm going to crop it. And then if we take a look back at our first scene, you can see that everything's going upwards. So now it only makes sense for everything to go or to pop up from the bottom. Okay, so on the first keyframe, we're just going to kind of bring everything down in a Y scale. And it should look something like this after we adjust the graph and make it fast at the start. So boom, if we look at our animation, everything goes up and comes back from the bottom. This is literally our animation. One little problem we have is just our text is kind of clipping. So we're just going to readjust its position accordingly. So I just kind of pushed it back far so that it's not as impacted by the camera, and got it up by a bit in terms of the Y scale. And now it's no longer being clipped by the image. Of course, you can add whatever effects you want. So now if we rewatch our entire animation, this laptop kind of coming in, I noticed that the scale is a bit too high, and it's all was caused by the problem that we talked about earlier. So we're gonna fix it real quick. Adjust the laptop's position. Keep calling it the laptop, but the layer I'm talking about. So what I'm gonna do is just adjust the Z position of both of these keyframes. So I'm gonna push it back so that it's not really impacted by the camera. See, as much as it's pushed backwards, and this goes for any layer, it's not as impacted by the camera movement. okay? And as much as it's close to the camera, it's impacted. Now, I want to reduce the impact, so what I'm going to do is just push it back, right? Push it back. And to counteract the problem that this creates, we just scale it back up. So make sure you copy the keyframe or the Z position from one keyframe to another in order to make sure that it's in the same position, and then scale it back up. Now, if you take a look at our animation, the zoom out animation doesn't make it as small, doesn't shift its scale by that much. And that's the effect I was trying to achieve. Now, just make the graph something like this. Of course, it was already adjusted, but I'm just trying to kind of,
Imagine setting up a live
let's
stream
see.
waiting for someone to join.
Yeah, so I'm
to
trying to
serve up an
achieve
event
more
just
of
to
like
end
a
up getting ignored like a YouTube
gnarly
ad.
transition.
Well, that's what happened to the streamer
And now the
called
rest of our
Jinxie.
transition or animation looks good. What I need right now is just an adjustment layer. So let's see. I just went ahead, new, and added an adjustment layer. Called it Final Touches. And it's just Vignette. Copy the values I have, and after rendering, your edit should look something like this.
Kai Cenat is in a huge drama that might cost him his career. Imagine setting up a live stream waiting for someone to join to set up an event just to end up getting ignored like a YouTube ad. Well, that's what happened to the streamer called Jinxie.